I'm starting right now. Hey. Hello and welcome. As I said just seconds ago, and I don't know, I'm a little distracted today. There's lots of weird stuff being talked about. But I'm going to go on with the show like I normally do. ohmTown. ohmTown.com. ohmTown on Twitch. ohmTown on YouTube. ohmTown on Twitter. ohmTown on Apple Podcasts. And going elsewhere as well. I've got 44 episodes that I'm going to be releasing. And I'm going to be busy. So I hope people see this and dig it and want to come and hang out and ask questions and chat about the news. But like I do with all of the episodes, quick rundown in the beginning, at least for the time being. I don't know how long I'll keep saying this, but ohmTown is a news aggregation site. And I aggregate hundreds of news sources, just a little snippet of the news, not the entire thing. And I link you to it so that you can go and read it and then come back either to the discussion boards, to Discord, to YouTube, to Apple Podcasts, etc. Like I just got done going through all of this stuff. And hopefully you come over to Twitch because I want you to interact with me here in the Twitch chat. And let me know what you think of this stuff. And you can even link to other articles and maybe I'll add them to the news feed. But ohmTown aggregates it into 6 categories, and there I'll scroll across the top. If you're in the podcast, you're not going to be seeing this, but these news articles get funneled into create, news, education, entertainment, social, and technology. And my primary focus is giving perhaps some additional context, relatability to the information that we're talking about, maybe some additional news. Really depends on what I know about it. Today, though, it seems to be just kind of a weird news day. I don't have a lot of weird news. It's pretty practical, pragmatic news. I don't know how exciting it'll be, but if you are in my chat and you are interested, feel free to ask questions. And if you want to be live on the stream, I can put you up there, up above me. There are alerts and stuff like that happen from time to time up there. I've stopped posting into chat the songs that are playing. It's really quiet on the other side of this, and I can barely hear it locally. But feel free to come into chat, and I'll turn up the music if you are interested. Obviously, we're here to talk about the news, right? So let's get on with the show. Every time you click on that front page, it'll refresh and it'll throw some more headlines on there. And right now, when I scroll down here, there's, it just refreshed. So I'm gonna scroll down, and there are over 9,300 pages worth of headlines. And let me scroll back up. This first article is all about inflation fears. It's here in the United States and elsewhere, wherever there is inflation. And there are some countries that have just a wildly high inflation rate going. The U.S. is somewhere around 7.5%, but people aren't getting raises of 7.5 or 8% to keep up. We're all taking a pay cut. But this article over on Market Watch, there's other articles that I've selected that have to do with this inflation topic, but I won't spend a lot of time on it. Basically, we are suffering from inflation, and it will continue for a while. they say we're not getting 1970s style inflation spike. Inflation is likely to ease this year, reducing downward pressure on stocks. And they, let me see something real quick. Yeah. They say 5 reasons why you need to buy the dip in stocks. Well, you should always buy the dip. The dip is the dip, and it will go back up. But when do you buy during the dip? If the dip actually is worth, depending on how much money you have, just buying the stocks isn't good enough. The dip isn't deep enough. The growth isn't going to be there. There's some things, I mean, you cannot go to a store right now without seeing empty shelves when it comes to certain staples. And you have to be kind of quick. So prices are going up. Stuff that I spent maybe $20 on right now is $30, $35, and goes up from there. And I'm, on the East Coast. Depending on where you live, it's going to be higher or lower, that impact on prices, but prices are going up. This gets into some more detail, talking about the Federal Reserve's policy on trying to control inflation. But I can tell you right now, the people that are making the most money, they know that there are people that are just being crushed by inflation because they don't have that margin to absorb an increase in costs. But they know that the people exist, but they don't care. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That's what you're going to hear. You should have made different decisions. That's what you'll hear. But why really is inflation happening when corporations have record profits and are still raising their prices? When CEOs are making $20 million and all of the people that are the line workers are paying for that $20 million. Yeah. I guess I'm an odd capitalist because I believe in capitalism in that it can provide growth. It can provide motivation, ambition, and capitalism go hand in hand, to a point. But I guess I'm just an oddball about this. But they make references to what I was talking about in previous episodes, where it says to fight inflation, the Fed Chair Volcker hiked rates so much in the late 1970s and early 80s that he slammed the economy into painful recession. Well, I'm thinking that it's going to happen. Hey, hello. Let's go. Where do you want to go? Welcome to ohmTown. So here in the States, I'm thinking we're going to end up back in 1970s, 80s inflation. And it's going to be tremendous. Gas prices and food is going to go through the roof. But we're going to still have companies that have record profits even through it all. Let's keep going. You're right. Let's go. I'm going to go to the next news article. This next one is in the Stock Marketeers channel. You'll not believe what I've just found inside the Ivermectin saga: a hacked password, mysterious websites, and faulty data. How a drug used to treat parasites for decades became the hot and controversial drug of the pandemic. This is what the news basically was. Across the board, for whatever reason, I didn't really see much in the way of games, entertainment. It all seems to be around this. So, but I'm going to race through this. And if you have questions, you want to chat, feel free to throw a question in there. I don't typically play games, at least not yet. I'm trying to talk more about the news and look for hosts and co-hosts if you want to sit up there in the space up above me and do a co-host type of thing. Reach out to me, talk to me. This article is written by Jamie Lee, how a drug used to treat parasites for decades became the hot and controversial drug of the pandemic. It's all because of marketing. Somebody who has charismatic leadership and the ability to reach out to enough people who swallow it hook, line, and sinker. Suddenly it becomes a solution. It's the same thing. I read an article, I didn't even read it. I read some of an article about someone running for Senate, but they're a movie star, and I could care less if you're a movie star. I want to know about your policies. I want to know about what really is going to happen when you're in office. And I don't even talk about really politics in my show, but it's just weird that movie stars are running for, or not even movie stars, really. I mean, this is a TV show star. I even forgot her name, for crying out loud. But whatever. Again, I have to warn everybody who might stumble across this. I do associative thinking, so one topic will lead to another. And we always come back to the original. But this particular article is talking about ivermectin. Last May, a student named Jack Lawrence sat down in his apartment and began combing through a medical study about ivermectin for his coursework at the University of London. And this is the kind of stuff that I'm interested in because, as I say, abuse happens in the dark. This stuff brings light to the reality. It gives the proper context to why information gets released and how it gets absorbed by a population, how a social group forms around some message, like QAnon. And somewhere along the line, it falls into that whole sociological order concept of cliques and groups, in groups and out groups. It's like basic sociology 101. And that's what this is. It's a small group of people that are vocal and they're talking amongst themselves. But really, I can predict, and like I did with the 2020 election, I predicted the election to within 3 states using one metric, only one. And when I do it for the next election, I'll be using that same reference, and I'll probably end up talking about it for the first time here on stream once I start doing the work for it. But until then, I'll just kind of tease it. Anyway, Lawrence says, suddenly I started noticing something. Although there were a lot of parts of the paper that were badly written, there were also a few sentences that had perfect grammar, perfect everything, and could have been plucked right out of another scientific paper. And in fact, they were. I put them into Google, and each of these sentences got a hit. Interesting. Paid $10.80 for a subscription to reactivate the link, which had expired in January 2021, only to find the file required a password. And then he tried 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Never use that as your password. Although it's really strange. The industry, one of the industries that I'm in is related to this password security. Do yourself a favor and go and download. Don't even use passwords. Use passphrases. It's a whole lot more secure than passwords. I can do a dictionary attack and get into pretty much anything. It just takes time. It really depends on the quality of the protection in place. But let's go on to the next article. go over to Market Watch and read this article for yourself, and then come back. I will start posting the links to the, let me do that right now. That's the link to the ohmTown discussion board in Stock Marketeers for this ivermectin article. The next article is COVID on Screen, Are Movies and TV Avoiding the Pandemic? Yes, I promise that not all of them have to do with COVID. It just happens to be very popular right now. And I'll tell you what, it says in the early days of what we used to call coronavirus in March of 2020, we've always called it coronavirus, before we all became budding epidemiologists, people flocked to Steven Soderbergh's eerily prophetic 2011 Contagion on streaming services. Maybe, I suppose. Click the link, take you over to the article on Variety. That's where that little snippet is taken from. COVID on Screen, Are Movies and TV Avoiding the Pandemic? This is written by Elsa Keslasi. And they obviously are going to talk about, did people flock to various videos, kind of get their fill of virus or zombie movies and whatnot? And are studios now like avoiding it, right? No, I don't think that they're avoiding it. I just don't think that it's worthwhile, right? I mean, we know that we're trending towards 1 million people. Has it already hit 1 million people in the United States? So I might edit this out of the podcast, but yeah, we're at 918,000 deaths due to COVID in the United States. And that's more than, I think it's more than the population of North Carolina. Let me see real quick. Sorry for the dead air. I try not to do that too much, but this I want to list the population. Or so yeah, so we're above, we're on the edge of Delaware now. Sorry, I meant South Dakota. So if the number of people who have died due to COVID were a state, they would rank 47th, right below Delaware. And we're moving up into that Delaware area, that Delaware time frame. So only a number, just a couple of days, and we will have a population more than Delaware dying due to COVID. Yet you'll see in some of these other articles that people still will not wear a mask and will not take the vaccine. And so nobody really wants to talk about COVID in a movie because it's just not fantastic enough. It's not crazy enough. It exists. It happened 100 years ago as well. And the exact same subset of people were doing the exact same thing. People were asked to wear a mask and they didn't. And people harassed them into wearing a mask. And nowadays, you know, you have alternative facts and a bunch of BS driving a discussion on the internet, and that bleeds over into real life. But usually, like prior to the internet, people that talked like this were just under a rock and out of the line of communication in small cliques in low population places and out in the country. And it just doesn't make any sense. We have evidence, 918,000 people in the United States alone. I can't talk about the rest of the countries that are of the world. There's so many of them who, and they all have their own context, their own issues. If you want to read more about it, go over to Variety and, or click that link right there in chat, and it'll take you over to ohmTown. And then from there, you can click the link to go over to Variety so that you don't have to hunt around. That said, I've disabled a couple of things on ohmTown. There used to be a voting system, voted up, voted down. The gamification stuff has been disabled for now. I'm trying to monitor speed performance of the site and trying to figure out why I can't connect Twitter and Twitch and YouTube and other logins straight into ohmTown. There's some conflict somewhere. Well, let's keep moving on. The next article is The Word in Tech. That's the channel it's in. Microsoft Activision plan shows gaming will be at heart of metaverse. And I really wish that they would stop using the metaverse phraseology. It's the term is just so muddy in in the internet space. But let's click the link and we'll go over and take a look at the article itself, but you can see the snippet. There's the article itself in chat. And it's over on The Guardian. And this takeover of Activision kind of shook people up. It's a massive amount of content that is going to be used within Microsoft's Game Pass universe. They're saying metaverse, but Meta and Facebook is this whole metaverse thing. But anything talking about Microsoft is pretty much, it's so apropos to have a muddy messaging system coming from and involving Microsoft. What I do for a living, one service that I started using 8 years ago was fine for 3 years, and then in rapid succession changed its name 5 times in 3 years, and then was wiped out entirely in favor of another name. And instead of perpetuating the service, they ended the service. And didn't just integrate the account over to the new service. They just ended it. It's really weird. But Microsoft, they're going to acquire as many assets as possible, integrate them into what is kind of a cash cow, which is the game store. And you'll be able to basically play everything for a set amount of money, and you won't own anything. You won't have to pay for individual games, but you will never own any of these products. It's a perpetual license to use them. And then it talks about other things here. Microsoft owns Xbox gaming platform, and Activision's games and talent will help the company in its competitive battle with Sony's PlayStation, as well as the gaming offerings from Meta's VR platform, Oculus, which is no longer Oculus. I don't think it's called Oculus, right? After years of being told that it wasn't going to be, yeah, it's called the Quest. I think it's just going to be referred to Meta Quest. Yeah. Anyway, so this is kind of one of the things that you will run across when business gets really big and they start taking a lot of flack. They pivot their name. They do something else. Like, everybody knew Google as Google, and then they became Alphabet. Everybody calls all of their products Google products. Like YouTube is owned by Google. Well, it's not. It's owned by Alphabet. Just like Facebook is now Meta. Meta owns Facebook. Meta owns Insta. Meta owns a bunch of other companies. But everybody knows that it's still Facebook. It even happens in defense contracting. Companies collapse because of bad reputation. So they change their name. They don't even change who it is that runs them. So, Facebook was getting some flack over its reputation was taking a hit because of policy and procedure it had, and it changed to Meta. And it's so big that it doesn't want something negative happening to its core brand. Well, in this case, Activision Blizzard getting acquired by Microsoft, it is a massive amount of product that's going to be integrated into their gaming platform, and we'll see if customers benefit from it. Steam kind of made it all the rage to make a single repository, but they don't have play anything you want. They make you buy it. And so you actually own it, but you only own, again, a perpetual license. As I tell my customers and people that I speak to pretty much on a daily basis, physical media is dead. Until we change the way this is going, you will never own a product, movie, book, TV show, anything really that can be transmitted electronically. You'll never physically own a copy of it, and you don't have any resale ability. You purchase the game and it's going to sit in your inventory forever. Okay, so this article was written by Dan Milmo. Microsoft's Activision plan shows gaming will be at heart of metaverse. It was written by Dan Milmo, the global technology editor. If you want to know more about it, then you can click the link that's in chat, or it'll end up being in the description of everywhere else I place this, since I'm now going to be uploading to YouTube and uploading to Apple Podcasts and other places as I get to it. So this next article is in the Word in Tech channel. Gosh, I'm trying to rush, but anyway, can Bitcoin be sustainable inside the Norwegian mine that also dries wood? Pardon me 1 second. So CryptoVault's operation is part of a fight back, interesting, against criticism of the famously energy intensive industry. I've described this to other people. And since this Twitch stream is brand new, I've only done this for 45 days now. I guess some of the stuff that I've spoken about in other places, I can bring up here. Bitcoin mining is a huge operation. It takes a ton of energy, a lot of tech. Most of the time it's ASICs now, so they're not really, they're specialized computers that are running specialized algorithms, but they are sucking down a ton of juice. And so a lot of these organizations move closer to power grids so that they can get more power quicker at a lower cost, instead of being far away from the grid and having to run extra lines and whatnot. But because they're so expensive, they have this huge carbon footprint, and you're getting a lower return on your investment because there are fewer coins to mine. So you get fragments of coins. And you have to become part of a consortium and to find more quicker. Yeah. And so in this particular instance, I guess they're trying to dry out wood using the exhaust from the servers. Depending on which organization you're working in, and how many servers they have and how much they want to invest in this. You actually have a cool side of your server racks and a hot side of your server racks. And all of that hot air gets blown out into another location, either exhausted out of the building, or in this case, it's drying wood, which I think is great to lower its carbon footprint, but it's still a ton of energy that's being consumed to acquire Bitcoin. And Bitcoin right now is trading at $42,200. It's down $181 today alone. And really this Bitcoin relies on it being adopted. So as long as companies are willing to utilize it, and see value in it, then it's going to keep going up. But Bitcoin as a standard product for somebody, or I should say, a fiscal embodiment for somebody to utilize to buy things every day, it just doesn't sit well because it's so abstract from the reality of pricing things. And so with a big purchase, then a Bitcoin is great. With daily purchases, it's so bizarre. It's so abstract for the regular Joe to use Bitcoin, because if you're going to go over to, McDonald's and pay with a Bitcoin, and your burger is $2.99 or $5 or $10, you have to move the decimal point over quite a far bit to pay with Bitcoin, because it's so small. So it's just too abstract. That said, all it takes is a government to say it's not accessible anymore. It can't be used. And it's totally up to the sovereign nation to decide what currency they'll accept, trade it with. So the reason why everybody treats Bitcoin as something more than Bitcoin is because it's pegged to the US dollar. Obviously, that translates into other currencies, but the US dollar is the reserve currency. So when people do oil transactions, for instance, they typically trade over to US dollars and then back out to whatever currency is part of both sides of the trade. Well, it's the US dollar that's giving Bitcoin $42,000 worth of value. And again, like I said, as long as businesses are accepting that Bitcoins translate into US dollars, Bitcoin will persist. But now there's thousands, I think, of cryptocurrencies that exist out there. Oh, I didn't say who this article was. Daniel Boffey from Norway. I don't know if that is pronounced Honfoss, but sometimes the way you pronounce it is not the phonetic way to say it. Anyway, that article is going to be pretty interesting if you are into cryptocurrencies. So go and check it out and then come back and talk to me about it. I'm going to do this again tomorrow at 6:00. I still have a bunch of articles to go through, so I'm going to keep hustling here. This next article is in the Smack Talk channel, and it's about Apple Watch. It really could be in my Band to Bezel channel as well, but in this particular case, it just got pulled into Smack Talk. So Apple Watch detects symptom of thyroid issue months ahead of diagnosis. And this is why I love pervasive technology. When it's there and you don't even realize it, and it's innocuous and just sitting on your wrist, and then suddenly you get a warning. It didn't give me a warning when I had an issue. It wasn't a thyroid issue. But maybe it's because in reality, I didn't really have an issue, and at least not one that would have been detected by the Apple Watch. But it does some pretty phenomenal things like fall detection. It monitors your heart rate, your pulse. It doesn't do blood pressure without some additional features. Whoa. I clicked on a link. And so this article was written by Malcolm Owen. I want you to go over to Apple Insider and read the material and then come back and chat with me. But just know that the reason why I talk about this stuff is to drive interest into the source and to talk about it in real time here on Twitch. And you will find that there are more than, just these exceptions to the rule. These are not exceptions to the rule where it saves somebody's life. There have been people who have been wearing the watch, they've fallen, and it calls for support. It calls 911 or it calls a person. There have been issues with heart rate alerts, and they end up going into the hospital, and that's the reason that they're still alive. I would encourage everybody to get an Apple Watch, and I don't own Apple stock or anything like that. It's just something that I'm very interested in. Simply because it's just, the price is pretty high for what some might call just a watch, but it does so much. I'm able to call people on my watch, what is it called? I just forgot what it's called. I can call using my watch anybody that also has an Apple Watch, or if you have the cellular version of it, you can call anybody in your contact list. And you don't need anything else. And all of your transactions that you do on your Apple Watch are one-off secure codes instead of, swiping your actual card. Although nowadays everything has a chip, and it's supposed to be more secure, but some places don't have the chip readers. You have to swipe your card. My wife's card was skimmed in New York one time, and I watched the person doing transactions while I was talking to the bank. The person just made a purchase here. The person just made a purchase there. Hi, Brill. How are you? Nice to see you. If you've never, let me see. Let me do this the right way. There is a streamer that I always go and see, and I'm going to throw his name in chat here. And so Brill helps out over at Dunkster's channel. Dunkster is from South Africa and has a great show. It's very entertaining and is very engaging with the chat. I think I'm gonna give him credit as being one of the motivators for me to do this and seek out that interaction with chat, because that's pretty much like what he does is what I want to do. I may talk about the news, and when I start gaming again as part of ohmTown, I'll do the same thing that he does, because that's just how I am. I interact with my audience when I do my presentations and what I do in my daily life. I've got, I don't really want to hype what I do, but I talk to quite a bit of people every day. And I require that interaction. It gives me more energy when there's interaction. But the news, and I'm just kind of going through it. Sometimes like I said, to Dunk a while back, that sometimes there's nobody in the channel and I feel like I'm just talking into a closet. But anyway, I'm going to keep going on with this. So nice to see you, bro. So the Apple Watch is something that I've had since its immediate release, and it's always been a benefit to me. But I also have an entire channel dedicated to watches called Band to Bezel, and it goes beyond smartwatches. But this just happens to be specifically with Apple, so it's sitting in the Smack Talk channel. And since there are some people here that have never been here, I just want to remind everybody that my goal here is to actually run 50 shows a week, 51-hour shows a week. And those that want to run longer can run longer. And everything kind of gets pushed back further. But the goal is to get to 50 shows. Each of them are housed in the topics at the top of the web page. And I'm posting the older shows that I've done over on YouTube, and it's also a podcast. Both of them are named ohmTown, so all you have to do is go to, well, yeah, on Apple, it's easier to find it, but on YouTube, there's a bunch of, anybody can be named ohmTown, so it pulls up a bunch of different people. But I'm the one that owns youtube.com. Well, I don't own it. I've reserved it. ohmTown. youtube.com/ohmTown, and it'll take you to my channel. It just has the intro right now, but feel free to check out as I add more features to it. You can follow on Apple Podcasts and on YouTube, and I also have a Discord channel and a Gilded channel, Gilded server as well, which if you've never heard of Gilded, I'll get into that some other time. Yeah, well, I mean, Dunk is very engaging, and he takes everything really well. You know, some people can kind of flame you in chat, and you can kind of get triggered or upset by it. But Dunk and I see eye to eye, I think, with our humor. So we get along well in chat, and I'm new to his channel, but I can't say anything but positive things about him and Timeless. Timeless is his co-host. He sometimes streams on Twitch as well, but Timeless is the co-host on Dunkster's show. So go and check it out. So this next article is in Stock Marketeer's channel. The website that it's aggregated from is MarketWatch, and they have these little kind of pithy little names for their shows, for their news channels. It's not really a show, but so this one's called The Margin. Who needs pepperoni? Pineapple is becoming the trendy pizza topping, and it says pineapple pizza orders soared 76% in 2021, according to a new report. And I would love to know who these people are, because pineapple is great all by itself. Pizza is awesome pretty much in any flavor. But the moment I see, this article, by the way, is written by Charles Passy. The moment that I see pineapple on a pizza, I head for the door. I'm out. I don't know what it is. I don't like the combination. No matter what kind of pizza it is, pineapple is the equivalent of a landmine. And when you bite into it, you're like, oh, my teeth are sinking into something that is sweet and sour against something that's savory. And it's just not a combination that I like. So I may be, I will never be part of the ones that add to the soaring orders. What do you think? Oh, really? That's how you feel about shellfish, right? Yeah, I was at one time. I haven't been able to dive in a long time, but I'm one of those search and rescue recovery divers, and we would go and get that stuff all the time. We call them bugs. And at some point I stopped being interested in shellfish too. So I don't think that like lobster and crabs have that much flavor, and I might eat it in sushi, but then again, not everybody is into sushi either. Yeah. Yeah. It's supposed to be meat, but yeah, when it gets cooked, most people cook it in a way that it's like kind of rubbery, particularly when it gets processed into kind of these weird cylinders. This fake crab meat kind of thing. Yeah. Plus, it takes a lot of cleaning, and it just sometimes it doesn't look pleasant. Soft shell crab is really creepy because you can eat the whole thing. But anyway, there's a pizzeria owner in Dunkster's channel too, and said that he was getting some spectacular sales the other day. Oh no, what's going on here? I don't know why Streamlabs is even in my channel, by the way, because I don't use their service and I've disconnected them, but they seem to still be in here. And I don't want to be rude and really ban them because it might trigger some other issue on their side. Yeah, that's what you're in my head, bro. Yeah, I keep thinking that that's the only solution, but I'll have to do that and just see what happens. But let's get on with this next article. I typically grab about 20 of them and I try and stuff it into an hour show, but I don't know how many more of these related to like the pandemic or COVID specifically, or politics are going to be showing up. So I hope you all enjoy the show, and feel free to ask questions and make comments about stuff. This one is really disconcerting, but it seems to be related specifically to Mac. I use every type of system. I have Macs, I have Linux, I have Android, I have iOS, I have PC, of course. I'm pretty much all over the place. I use proprietary builds for cybersecurity and for data science and things like that. And so I'm pretty up to date on a lot of things about security and issues. And this is one of the most disconcerting ones because Zoom is a massively popular program. I've got it on pretty much every system that I own, so that I can always strike up a meeting from anywhere that I am. And this has to do with the fact that there was a bug that kept your mic on after meetings and didn't even know. The bug causes the mic indicator light on macOS Monterey to appear when Zoom isn't in use. So users have been complaining about the issue, and apparently it gets fixed. So it acknowledged a bug that appears to cause microphones on Macs running macOS Monterey to stay on even after leaving the meeting. And I wonder, looking back at a couple of my meetings, somebody had said that they could still hear somebody talking, even though the meeting was over, but there were people still in the meeting. They had ended the meeting, but there were people still in the channel. So when they disconnected, apparently they were still connected, but maybe that's just kind of a, I had a Zoom meeting. I had a Zoom on my streaming PC after a family event. I deleted it immediately. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have concerns over Zoom because it's a Chinese company and it sends its data out. So it gets processed somewhere. So let's visit this page so that I can give credit to the author, and you can go over to the Verge. Oh, have I not been putting the articles in chat? Man, I am falling behind here. Really sorry. I'll get into the groove of doing it. So this article is written by Emma Roth over on The Verge, and they always have these everybody has these neat graphics. I don't have a graphics department, and I don't plan to. I mean, I want to talk about the news and not really the graphics, but it's always interesting that everybody has some custom graphic sitting on their page. When using Zoom on a Mac, now's the time to make sure it's updated to version 5.9.3. Zoom has acknowledged a bug that appears to cause the microphone on Macs running Mac OS Monterey to stay on even after leaving a meeting. Creepy. And just goes to show you, you should actually have a software firewall. I don't have any stock in Glasswire or its parent companies, or have any stake, or, I won't profit from this, but Glasswire on a PC does wonders for awareness, and it lets you know, once you configure it properly, it lets you know of every attempted communication until you allow it to communicate. There's another one for Mac called Little Snitch, which is what I use on the Macs. That does the exact same thing. Lets you know when somebody tries to make communication either inside or outside your network, or through the PC, through your computer. So I can't say enough about using either one of those. I actually block the update servers so that they can't even automatically update, because I want to know when they do anything to my computer. But then I also have a hardware firewall on the edge of my network. So I take it a little bit more seriously than many, many people. That said, update. Basically make a backup of your system and then do updates, and then make a backup of your system once you've verified that everything is good to go. Apple makes it like drop dead simple to do that kind of stuff. Windows, not so much. It's a little more convoluted, but you can do it there too. But let's keep going. Like I warn people, I get distracted by things, and I just realized you have your name in your about section. Are you sure you want to keep it that way? On my Twitch channel? Let me see something. Sorry, too many monitors. In my Twitch channel, I have my name. Let me see. Really, hold on a second. Come on. There it is. What? Merwatt? Oh yeah, I don't mind. No, that's fine. I go by Merwatt all throughout Twitch and other places. But when I am just surfing around Twitch, I don't hype ohmTown. If somebody asks me if I'm a streamer, or if I end up talking about something, like somebody will ask me what I'm the mayor of, and I say ohmTown. But I don't hype up my channel and other people's channels. It's just not my nature. I really don't advertise. I want this to be as natural as can be. And so I'll be kind of hyping it up on other places. No. What? No, that's not my real name. But I talk about my business. I'm pretty easy to find. It's really not a concern to me. I mean, I think I used to be a PI, so anybody's pretty easy to find unless you're overseas, and then it's really difficult to find somebody from overseas unless you're highly motivated. And so, oh yeah, I know all about swatting, and I know about people showing up. And it's a real bummer that the world is full of people like that. And so you just have to be prepared and I guess not. I don't know. You just got to do what you got to do. So I hope I don't get any stalkers. I mean, all I'm talking about is what's being posted around the internet. So, but I might say some inflammatory things that trigger people. It might happen. So be sure to update your Zoom so that at least on the Mac, I don't know if it's happening on the Windows version of Zoom. This next article is Lost Ark becomes the second most played game in Steam history after just 24 hours. This is kind of you don't even have to need to trigger people to be a target of a wandering troll. Yeah, that's unfortunate for sure. Guys don't, I guess, really have to run into that, right? I mean, there might be a lot of stalkers, but usually people just become violent and upset with most guy streamers, right? Not most guy streamers, like most of the time when there's something that ends up either in the real world or in the chat, it's because they've said or done something. But women have a whole different, it's unfortunate. But you know what's one of the things that I talk about is sociology, the social aspect of the internet, of technology, and this kind of stuff. I mean, you have bullies in the real world, no matter what, but they're so emboldened on the internet that they can get away with anything at any time. But particularly in the United States, it's really difficult to get away with it long term. When it starts happening repeatedly, it becomes a federal crime. So but overseas, again, people can say and do things. And it's just disheartening. It's boredom. It's sociopathy. They need to just play Lost Ark. Lost Ark has comfortably passed 1 million concurrent players after just 24 hours. And if Asmongold is any indicator of how much engagement there is in Lost Ark, my goodness. The servers were down the other day, and Asmongold, sitting in Twitch, had over 350,000 people watching him look at random videos and waiting for the servers to come back online. It was amazing. I haven't had much problem getting into the servers, but maybe I'm not doing it at peak hours. But let's go over to the link. Tom Warren is the author of the article on The Verge, and they'll go into greater detail about this over on The Verge, but feel free to follow the link and then go over there and read it, and we can talk about it the next time if you are interested in it. SteamDB is a great reference point for what games are available and at what level. So if you are a streamer and you want to keep doing the popular things, then that will indicate what is popular. Alternatively, it also lists a lot of games where people aren't playing them in high quantities, right? Older games typically. And you might be able to attract an audience if you're a streamer, or you're just looking for, oh, I remember that game now that you see it. So a big list of games is really easy to parse versus trying to hunt down that old game and you don't remember the name. And but you might be able to find something interesting in SteamDB's list where it's in Steam and you can download the game and whatnot. You don't have interest in Diablo style games? Oh my gosh. Diablo is another rager of a game. People love Diablo. And PoE is another one. But I'm not really into grindy games. I like story-driven games like the original WoW. I like going through the story and not doing the same boss battle over and over and over again. And largely, Lost Ark isn't like that until you hit 50. It's all kind of story driven and you don't have to grind so much. But I've only gotten to, I think I'm level 20, so I don't have a lot of time to play. But I will force myself to get a couple hours in every night, I think. So this next article is over on Smack Talk. Satechi, or Sateki, 3-in-1 magnetic wireless charging stand. So I offer up an eclectic arrangement of articles that get imported into ohmTown. So you don't get bored with the same old news over and over and over again. They only give it a 3-star out of 5, and it's Wesley Hilliard that did the article. This is designed so that you can charge pretty much anything as long as it has a magnetic mount. But it only has a 7.5 watt iPhone charging stand, which that's pretty weak. You're not going to get fast charging out of that. And it has a watch stand. So I would rather 3D print a stand and use the higher energy stands. Not particularly. The way that fast charging, well, it depends on the sophistication of your item. So Apple phones and watches have some pretty sophisticated electronics in them to stop a charge from overcharging the system. And so that's where it being bad for the device really is. There's some pretty sophisticated chips talking back and forth on both sides of the charging system. Pardon me one second. And so you can overcharge when the system is like a Qi charger, but it's cheaply produced, and you put a device on there and it doesn't really communicate everything. It communicates that there's a coil there, and then you can get overcharge. Or it doesn't limit the charge. And that's kind of overcharging, but when it feeds it too much power for a sustained period of time, it can overheat and cause greater concern. It'll ruin the battery faster, but when everything is at the same level of quality, then it's not really bad. Not so much. Let's see, how much is this? You have to spend another $18 on the required 20 watt power adapter. Is that what it says? It doesn't come with a power adapter, so customers have to spend another 18 bucks on it. Does it say how much the actual charger is? Let me keep going. Wow, it's like modular and come on. The removable Apple Watch charger is one saving grace in the 3-in-1 charging stand. Sells the magnetic charging dock for the Apple Watch at $40. And this puck replicates that use case. Okay. The Belkin 3-in-1 we mentioned earlier is $150, which isn't a far cry from the $120 stand and the $15 20-watt charger. Yeah, and in both cases, I don't really like the looks of the stands, but I'm not the designer. I wouldn't even know. I don't know what I want, but I don't want that. And I don't want that. I'm not really sure what the fascination is with just hovering it out there on a magnetic stand, but I would like something more secure. It's kind of diminutive. I mean, it's small so that it doesn't sit there and take up a lot of space. It's about the size of the phone itself. So, um, but wow, you have to kind of piece it together. Kind of sketchy. But yeah, I just lay my phone down on a charger. It's actually like at a 45-degree angle. It's a wireless charger, and my watch is the same way, but it's the Apple brand puck for the Apple Watch. And I want every device to be wireless charging. It's less efficient, but I hate cables. Yep. That's it right there. That's right, bro. Wireless chargers, you just kind of set it there and it charges. You don't have to worry about a connector. My wife the other day, it's been actually a couple of months. The connector on the charging cable started smoking. She sat down to work and it just went up in smoke, and I hear her yell my name, and I come racing out of my office asking what the heck is going on. And it turns out that the charger is on fire. Wow. Interesting. That's interesting. Well, you're one of the pros here, right? So you get that kind of treatment. That kind of stuff gets sent to you all the time. Not me. At least not yet, right? So the next article is Mexico lime inflation leaves sour taste as cartels gouge prices for cuisine staple. Oh, there you go. So Hatch Ideas is my company, and I do intellectual property development, strategic management consulting, and I plan to talk about business in a more holistic, help small businesses pivot kind of way. It's one of the 50 shows that I'm trying to spin up. And this caught my eye, and that's why it was aggregated into Hatch Ideas, because I'm going to click the link here. This is written by Mata Busby, or Busby. Let me pronounce that correctly. Wow, that's interesting. I used to live in that location right there, San Pedro, California, actually. So everything is going up in prices, but they're saying that cartels are gouging the price. And everything is being charged more. There is a supply problem with everything, because there are a lot of people that are sick. There is issues with getting things imported. You can't move product fast enough. When it's still high in demand, then you test out this economic business theory of what's called elasticity of demand. So price elasticity of demand. So the price will go up and up and up until people start balking on the price and they stop purchasing. And that's when people start lowering the price. But then you know what that elasticity level is. It happens with gas all the time. The problem with gas, where it's not a problem with limes, is you don't actually need limes. So what you're going to end up doing is pricing out the people that don't care enough to pay the higher price. And that can hurt your business overall. But more people are going to, the more affluent person who really likes limes will pay more. It's kind of like a gamer, where a gamer will pay more longer periods of time just to play the grind in a game, to learn the boss. And that's kind of that WoW thing that I was talking about earlier. The real cash crop for WoW is the dedicated WoW gamer. and not so much the casual. Us dirty casuals don't really make much money for WoW. So Brill says Australia is rather self-sufficient, which is nice. However, all of our produce was picked by backpackers, and now we have no backpackers. Really? That's interesting. Is that a euphemism for something? Like, is that a like a local term for actual backpackers? Like people hiking? Like we have people that their sole job is to pick limes. Oh, right. Yeah, yeah. So it is what I was thinking. Okay. Wow. And they do enough to pick produce? That's fascinating. But there's a whole bunch of people that their sole job is to pick lemons, pick limes, pick avocados. And it has to be manually picked because there's the perception that automated picking devices damage it too much. So you have to hand pick it. And so it's labor intensive and it gets more expensive. And then you have inflation overseas, you have inflation in the United States. Every single layer of that process wants a piece of the action, and you end up having higher prices. But then when you have criminal gangs, like it says here, the green fruit has become less ubiquitous on local tables as criminal gangs fight over the trade, driving diners to distraction. And therein lies the rub, when you've got some outside force that's causing your business to suffer. Again, it speaks back to what I was saying previously, criminal gangs, they don't care about the law or you, they want the money and the power and the authority, and that's it. So you just got to do what you got to do. But the cost of limes has tripled since January 2021 from 17 pesos, almost $1, to 56 per kilo. Wow. That's rough. But you can always buy that pseudo lime stuff, right? It's partially made from fresh limes, so it'll go up in price too, but for whatever reason, that pseudo lime stuff, that it's in a green plastic lime. I don't know if it's the same everywhere, but here in the States, it looks like a lime, but it's a plastic container. I'm sure they do it everywhere. Wow, I might have to go once the pandemic is over. That's one of my goals, is to go to Australia. I've been talking with the wife about it for a while. That'd be great. But not until the pandemic is over. I see myself landing and catching it immediately. I had a friend that went to London and caught a cold that was so bad he ended up in the hospital that same night that he landed, and missed his entire trip. He was in the hospital long enough to basically kill his trip, and he tried to return home early, and they couldn't find a flight for him. Really rough day. So this next article is Paris police fire tear gas to disperse banned virus protest. I picked this simply so that I could say the following statement. I'm going to click the link. Actually, I'm going to post the link over in chat. It's hit or miss, I guess, if I'm throwing these properly into chat. But click this link. When I read that little snippet, and I'll go back to the snippet. Police fire tear gas against a handful of demonstrators Saturday who defied a police order by taking part in a protest against virus restrictions inspired by Canada's horn-honking Freedom Convoy. Yeehaw, Freedom Convoy. And I just wanted to say, you know what would protect you against tear gas? Wearing a mask. Anyway, and that was pretty much it. Paris fire tear gas to disperse banned virus protest. See, I have a problem with banning protests because I think people should be able to speak out against the issues. I don't like things being suppressed. People should be able to say what they need to say. The real problem is when it threatens the standard process of living. Like, people aren't getting their medicine. People can't get to their food. People can't get to work. It continues, everything that you can think of that prevents somebody else from doing their life, because there are a subset of people that feel slighted by having to either wear a mask or take a vaccine. Yet a lot of it is a lot of people get vaccines, or their kids have to have vaccines so that they can go to school. But that's not really a problem. But then out of the blue, it becomes a problem because this vaccine was apparently rushed, but it wasn't really rushed because people have been working on this type of vaccine since it was discovered. But when a ton of money goes into play and they are mandated by both the government and their agencies and their organizations, agencies or government, organizations or business, the amount of research that was conducted in a short amount of time gave enough evidence that this was going to be a positive thing. It was going to be a solution. And then the deeper dive into the data showed that it is a solution. The only problem that we have right now is not everybody wants to get this vaccine. They think that it's changing DNA, and that's not true. This in Paris, all it's going to do is irritate people. This is an article by Thomas Adamson from the Associated Press, by the way. Like I do with all of my articles, I urge you to go over and read the article, and then you can come back and talk with me tomorrow about it. Like, hey, that article was really interesting, or hey, it really sucked, or whatever you want to tell me. I'm game to discuss it. And but you have a small place. It's a relatively small area that they are blocking, and emergency vehicles need to get to their destinations, and people need to get to their destinations. And it's a relatively small amount of people in the overall context. And that's another thing that I talk about a lot. The context really matters here. Okay. And this is a small number of people that are doing a lot of flag waving and signaling that this is oppression and whatnot. But if you look at the stats for France, something like 85 or 90% of the population is vaccinated, and they're, embracing this because they see that it's going to keep them from great harm and everybody around them from great harm, because me getting the vaccine lessens I can still get the virus, but it won't have a great impact on me. It's called a breakthrough infection. And so you can actually get it, but you don't even feel it. You might have a runny nose, that kind of a thing, but it's not doing great damage to your lungs. It's not doing great damage to your body to the point where you become incapacitated, within 14 days. So there's no evidence to suggest that this thing is bad. And, as a side benefit, you're picking up Microsoft radio stations, and you are growing a tail, and there's nothing wrong with the virus, right? Nothing wrong. And that's another thing. Yeah, Brill, you just said it. The idea that me taking somebody out to dinner who's immunocompromised and somebody without a vaccine is sitting there and they're not showing any signs. They're just a carrier for the virus. They're asymptomatic. The person that I'm with that's immunocompromised can die pretty darn quick, because when you're immunocompromised, the virus can run rampant a whole lot faster, and it causes heart damage. It causes lung damage. And your lungs don't repair, and heart muscle doesn't repair. You become what's called a long hauler if you survive. And I don't want anybody, least of all, my kids or my friends' kids or my wife or my parents or anybody getting it. It's just a horrible thing to have to live with because somebody didn't want to take a vaccine or wear a mask. So this next article, I'm going to keep on hustling because I'm running way late. Stock Marketeers is the channel. The rapidly evolving world of snack foods. Is oatmeal the new guacamole? I'm going to post that. I'll post this in the chat. And click the link. Why some may be ditching the guacamole this Super Bowl Sunday in favor of oatmeal. I don't know about this. I saw this and I wanted to read a little bit. This is another article by Charles Passy. Do ready-to-eat oats hold the potential to take the place of chips and dip? And I can tell you no. People really dig chips and salsa and guacamole on game day. I might eat this because I like to try stuff out quite a bit. But I've got a pressure pot and whatchamacallit, what's the other one? It's not a pressure pot. But I can sit there and cook this stuff in 10 minutes and be done, and it's perfect. But you don't get all of these flavors. So I probably would go to the store and buy this, but it's not because it's game day. I'm not going to be replacing my chips and salsa on game day. It's burgers and chips and salsa and fries and pretty much everything is available on game day. But this is more like for my vegetarian spouse and maybe for breakfast, but I'm not going to be having this on game day. Not unless it's gifted to me and somebody says, I'll bet you to eat this on game day. I'll probably get beat up in my living room. But it has some nice marketing. It's obvious what it is. It's not ostentatious. I like the name. I like the packaging. It's pretty cool. But I don't see beer drinking, slider eating, oorah kind of people grabbing a ready to eat mush for one container and sitting there watching the game. But tell me what you think. Go over to the Market Watch and read the article, and then you can come and talk to me more about it. Because like I said, I'm really interested in having people talk about it. One of these days, I've been considering posting all of this before I have the show so people can go and read it. Here's the next article. But I want to interact with the same amount of information, and we both have our reactions and talk about it. But then I saw this, one of the very next articles that I was looking at, and it says in the Stock Marketeers channel, sourced by Market Watch, of course. If you're just going to have chips and salsa, it's not going to break the bank. Yeah, I don't know about that. Super Bowl party hosts get hit by inflation. Chicken wing prices up 26%. Overall, the costs are increasing by up to 14% for a full game day spread. So let's click this link. I don't know who all is here in the States that is in my chat or interested in the Super Bowl. I haven't watched a Super Bowl all the way through, mainly because my attention gets drawn away pretty darn quick. Again, this Charles Passy has to be getting paid bank for all of these articles in one day, but this is a 1 day. 3 of them that I've already selected were written by Charles Passy. So if you scroll down, you will see this data point forever. One of the things, though, that happens over time is that percentage rate right there will change from time to time, even throughout history. I use a certain data point for one of my teachable moments, and the percentage for GDP has changed periodically over the last 6 years. And I kind of use that as an example of what right now is 7.5%. When greater detail, greater information, greater data is applied to this, it's going to change. It's going to, have you been auto-modded? Interesting. I see 2 issues with oats as game food. 1, it's not finger food, and 2, it's not savory. Yes. Yeah, I agree. Until dinner is consumed and somebody says, "Hey, let's bring out dessert," oatmeal is barely even dessert. So I wouldn't even. It's a breakfast thing. It's not a dinner thing. Some of us will eat it for dinner. I love oats. Oatmeal is great, but it's not game day food. It just isn't. So with this, everything is going up. This is going to be a culture shock for everybody who has had it relatively good here in the States. And again, it's a context, right? So this is a gamut of people who can afford pretty much whatever they want and people who can barely get from home to work to home without going greater in debt. And so inflation is, I said this in yesterday, I think, maybe the day before too, the episodes. Inflation is going to harm those who simply can't afford prices as they are today. And without a compassionate society, this is going to get bad, really, really bad. And when I was a kid, I didn't even bear witness to it in any real way. Inflation wasn't real to me. But as an adult, with friends and with families and, I'm involved in community. This is going to just look horrible for those of us who are adults and watching it happen and literally can't do anything about it. Society in great numbers can't even solve inflation because it's monetary policy coming from the Federal Reserve and the amount of money that's actually in play in the system tied together with production and a bunch of other factors all. And I say this not as a conscious conspiracy, but it's all conspiring to raise costs. People are going to make money hand over fist during inflationary times, but it's those who are supplying those goods and services that are benefiting from the increased rates. Meanwhile, the massive profits that corporations are getting are not being passed down to the lower wage earners. most people are not getting a 3% raise, let alone a 7.5% raise, let alone a 10% raise just to keep ahead of inflation. It's just not happening yet. CEOs are making $20 million and then getting a golden parachute, or I should just say a bonus each year because they've increased something somewhere. Well, you're leaning on a metric ton of employees. They deserve more. So I'm going to try and step off that soapbox. But everybody's going to get hit by inflation. So if I'm wrong, that would be great. But I fear that I'm right. And Brill, let me know if you're still auto-modded. I allowed it to go, so I think it should be okay. Oh, great. So animal prognosticators provide the Super Bowl picks. Buffett or buffet? It's buffet. The resident manatee at the Moat Aquarium in Sarasota, Florida got an 11-2 record in the last 13 Super Bowls. Wow, that's pretty good. Yeah, I'm going to click this link. I had to lighten the mood in this stream because things were getting a little dark. And so I threw this in here. It piqued my curiosity. Kind of like predicting more weeks of winter. I'm going to pause that so that I don't get DMCA'd. But Buffet, the resident manatee at the Moat Aquarium in Sarasota, Florida, got an 11-2 record in the last 13 Super Bowls. And there isn't an article here, but you'll have to go over and watch the stream. It's on Good Morning America. And I think it's really fascinating that it's got a better record than, most stock traders. And it's a manatee. I wonder what they're doing to entice it to pick a certain place, a certain thing. How would they know? Do you think that they have like a little TV underwater and they're watching stats and their fantasy football team is just spectacular? They're walking away with a ton of money. If I can remember to tell you guys about this, there is a Python class where you actually spin up your own fantasy football analysis engine. It teaches you Python so that you can actually spin up your own picking engine so that you can win at fantasy football. So fantasy football is where the games are played, but before the game is played, you pick what your lineup is, and depending on how they perform, you get a certain number of points. The winner, when it's done professionally, like on a betting site, or even locally, you can basically have a fantasy football league and people pay into it. And then when the game is over or the season is over, really depends on what rules you set down. You make money, and sometimes it's a considerable amount of money depending on how much money is in the kitty. So, but you should look it up. It's kind of interesting. You might be interested in it. So this next article is in Stock Marketeer's channel. The ratings game, Disney's massive recovery is still in the early innings as parks business bounces back with a vengeance. So when the pandemic was, it's not too complicated, but it can be. You can start out with a simple game and just pick a bunch of people that you think have the right stats. And the stats actually get explained when you are looking at them. Again, it depends on where you go to look for it. If I can remember to do this, I can point you in the right direction for and maybe somebody else in chat knows of a good fantasy football league site. Yeah, if you've never watched football and you're not into it, then I wouldn't even bother. But it's interesting. You might dig it. People get converted into something simply because they get introduced to it. And I'm trying not to make a drug reference, but it can be like a drug, because like horse racing and stuff like that for me is, if I go to a horse racing track, I love picking the winners and I get into it. Not so much fantasy football, but it's fun to sit there and join in the camaraderie of playing a game and having this little side bet and being able to smack talk people because you kick their butt. But it's all in good fun, hopefully. And that might be good too. Actually, never gambled is probably a good thing. So what do you think is going to happen with Disney and their parks? I'm going to click this link and I'll take you over there. So Disney has been raising its rates for access to the show, to the business, to the parks. My goodness. It says Disney is already sporting strong domestic parks results, even with attendance below pre-pandemic levels. And that's because they've been raising their rates. And there's a desire to go to the parks. People haven't been able to go in great numbers. There's more to do in the parks. They've been adding stuff to them, taking older stuff out that isn't as attractive or relatable to today's consumer. I think that's kind of what's going to happen to some degree. What's going to end up happening, I think, is people with the money and the desire, mostly the money though, because it's going to become really expensive to go to Disney parks. Trying to stay overnight at a Disney hotel is really expensive. I don't know of a cheap location within Disney parks. But they're raising the rates, and they have been for quite some time, slowly increasing the rates. He rates Disney shares at neutral with a 165 price target. So what is Disney at right now? Does it say it up there? It says it's down 1.77%. So it's actually down 1.72%, but it's at $149.47 a share right now. I'm not anybody's financial advisor. That's really not my area of specialty, although I went to school for it. I encourage people to get stocks that provide dividends and reinvest those dividends in the stock and let it ride. Unless you're a day trader or you are well off and trading large numbers of shares, you're not going to be impacted by small numbers of shares or large numbers of shares with low prices, unless you have some really good intel that a stock is going to go through the roof, or you do the meme game and you invest in stocks that are being traded, and you get in early enough with kind of internet based purchases. I'll put it to you that way. So just invest and let it ride. You can pay attention to it, but try it out with Robinhood with a small number of, a small valuation of your portfolio and see how it goes. You might be surprised, but yeah, I used to do day trading, and I learned after a couple of years, it's just not my thing. Depending on how much money you have, it's a thing. You set goals and you try to stay within them. And try to walk away when you've reached the goal, good or bad. And sometimes it's hard. So Disney parks will probably recover and they'll raise their rates. And when you go back, you will still pay them. And that will show really strong domestic results. Overseas, maybe not quite sure. There are day traders bad for the spread. Well, automated trading platforms do more damage than day traders. But in all cases, you're watching data happen in near real time. And so as long as you're paying attention, you can see where it's trending towards. You may be able to get in and get out in time, but really it's leveraging a ton of money to make purchases, and it gets really complex at times. But like shorts and other calls that are more complex than just purchasing a stock. It can get pretty complex, but looking at charts in real time is basically what a day trader does, and trying to predict what the next level, either going up or going down, is going to be, without getting too into the weeds. But yeah, it's more institutional investors that move large amounts of wealth around. Day traders don't really do that so much, but hedge fund operators and large institutional investors, they're the ones that really, they make a mistake with a decimal point and you see a massive drop in the valuation of the stock, or a great increase, which is rare, but usually something catastrophic happens with automated trading platforms. So this next article is LG's 27-inch Ultra Gear QHD monitor, a gaming monitor, is a steal at $280. And did I post it? Yeah, I did. So this article here is over on The Verge, written by Antonio G. DiBenedetto. And any 1440, 144 hertz 27-inch monitor is going to be a great at $280. Just make sure, and LG does this. My monitors here right now are all Asus, but LG has great panels, and return it immediately when it has dead pixels, hot pixels. All of my monitors have been awesome until right before the pandemic. I bought a 27-inch curved, and because one of my other monitors had gone wonky and like half of the panel went bad, and it was weird because there haven't been any problems with it for years, but it's a 27-inch Asus, and it was nice. So it got replaced and they sent it back to me. But this curved monitor is really, really nice. But LG manufactures for other people, and you can always get it replaced or repaired if it has a hot pixel. It's just part of what they do for their quality control. But just recently I found that one of my Asus monitors has one hot pixel, and my eyes go straight to it all the time. So nowadays 1440 is picking up as really the foundation for gaming. 1080 was the old standard, but over the years now, it's actually taken a considerable amount of time to get out of 1080 and start trending towards 1440. But 144 hertz is that it's a sweet spot before you get into some pretty extraordinary pricing. But with 144 hertz, you have more opportunity to see detail. And that's what the benefit of 144 hertz is. So imagine you have 60 pages and you make that little drawing in it so that when you do the flip book, you only see 60 frames. Well, now take it to 144 frames and you can put more detail into that flip book. And people who play games in particular, and I say this in a previous episode, if you are, if you've been trained as a fighter pilot, you have a visual acuity that's increased because you've been trained to see more, and you basically can see things that it's really hyperbolic for me to say it this way, but you basically see time in a different way. You are seeing more detail, and the more chances for a screen to flip in front of you, you will see more motion sooner than somebody who sees it at 60, because you are seeing bigger jumps at 60 versus 144. And you can find videos about this. I think Linus Tech Tips has done a little expose kind of a thing on it. So you really do want a faster refresh rate monitor if you're into gaming and you want to be competitive. Yeah. For someone who's been hit by a car, I can tell you time's relative. Yeah, I was hit head on. A person was going 80 through a stop sign intersection. So yeah, I feel it. I feel your pain. I hope you're okay, bro. So definitely, if you are interested if you're in the market for a new monitor, then definitely go and get this monitor. I say that you can't go wrong with an LG. So go and check it out. Okay, so I've got 3 more. I'm going to try and catch up really quick. 5 electric SUVs by 2026 are key to Lincoln's future. One of the channels that I'm hoping to launch is 4-Wheel Tech. I'll post that URL in chat and go to the source. And so everybody is looking into, I'm sorry, I scrolled really fast. Everybody is jumping on the bandwagon of electric vehicles. I will continue to say that electric vehicles are not ready for prime time. Tesla just recalled almost 600,000 cars because of a programming issue with their speaker system it's supposed to alert people, but it can be used for pretty much anything. It's an ongoing thing. I don't sit for stream anymore. Yeah. Oh, I hope you'll be fine, bro. The sit stand desk, by the way, is great. It allows you to relax for a little bit, but then you can always stand up. I don't know your particular situation, but you find what makes you comfortable and stick to it. So there's a lot of electric vehicles that are coming to market. The Mach-E, which I see periodically. Oh yeah, that's right. And the F-150 Lightning. I've seen both of these. I'm not a big fan of the Mach-E. The Lightning is beautiful. But I got a full-size garage, and I don't even think I can park an F-150 Lightning in it. F-150s aren't as small as I remembered F-150s of decades ago, but they're also really expensive nowadays. They're going to bring back the Ranger, apparently. I don't know if that's actually going to happen or not, but Tesla recalled batteries take too long to charge up. There's no when even a fast charger, if it takes 30 minutes to charge up your car, I don't have time to sit for 30 minutes. I want to be able to pull into a gas station. And I said this in a previous episode. I want an apparatus that can reach up under my car, grab the battery, put a new battery in, one that's either been reconditioned and is capable of still being used. And it is no longer, it gets treated like gasoline, right? So the network of vendors that are providing the batteries take on the burden of refurbishing the batteries and keeping them retail ready. But I want to be able to pull into a gas station. There's an apparatus that centers underneath my car, grabs the battery sled out from the car, puts a new battery in that's already been charging, has been tested and is ready to go. And off you go. Boom, 5 minutes, just like it takes to fill up a car. But if I have to spend 30 minutes, I just can't buy into it. You know, I can't drive from here to, North Carolina or South Carolina or Georgia, or go across the country to California, or to Oregon, in an electric vehicle without fear of, and it's a constant fear of not being able to make it a supercharger, and having to sit either for hours at a lower level charger, or if I do make it to a supercharger, I still have to sit for 30 minutes. It's an extraordinary amount of time to spend every 320 miles. So you say that, but maybe you're not taking real breaks like you said, like you should. You mean when I'm driving? Oh yeah. Well, I've never been one for stops. I drove from California to Washington, D.C. Yeah, I don't get tired. I sleep about 2 hours a night. So, but again, I'm not saying everybody does this. So you're right. You know, you shouldn't drive when you're tired. You do need to stretch and do all of the things that keep you from harming yourself when you're doing things. So, yeah, I totally get it. Oh, and that's horrible. Yep, those little nods off end up killing people. So, do what Brill says. Take breaks, relax, stretch, don't fall asleep. If you do feel sleepy, then just pull over and get a room and crash. You know, I've done that where I have been driving and I start feeling really tired, and you just, you just have to take a nap. But, well, that complaint is actually just driving 400 miles. You have to stop and fill up, and 30 minutes is a considerable amount of time. In the middle of the day, it's everybody drives that amount of time. 4 hours is not a big deal, but you have to stop to fill up. That takes time. This next article is rising inflation will drive increases in auto, credit card debt. CFPB Director Chopra warns. So the consumer and financial, let me see. Dun, dun, dun. Let's see. You go by Gerald. Dad mode says not to let the people I passed catch up to me. Yeah. So I got a ticket once. I went to pass somebody and get away from the crowd. I wanted to get away from the crowd because people were driving really dumb and I didn't like it. And so I decided to, what is that? Visit ohmTown at. That's weird. Why did it do that? Anyway, so the biggest ticket that I ever got was $2,500 because I went 1 mile over 80 while I was passing somebody. Yeah, they do. Might have to get mods. It's weird. I don't know why that's there and why that even happened. because I don't have anything in there. But yeah, I hit 80 in a state where it becomes reckless driving, and ended up having to pay $2,500. Probably shouldn't say that in a stream that's going to get turned into a podcast and a YouTube video. So anyway, yet another article, and I think I've only got one more, and then I'm done. Rising inflation. We're going to keep on seeing things about inflation, and today is probably the last day that I'll have this many articles talking about it. Agency is continuing to investigate junk fees charged by banks and other financial institutions. Yeah, credit card debt is going to go through the roof in terms of interest rates. It's already exceptionally high. If you don't have exceptional credit, if you don't have above 800, you're probably paying 12%, 20%, 30%, depending on the quality of the card. This is really, it's going to be a big deal. And auto credit, the interest rate on automobiles is going up. The payments are extraordinary. If you buy a car and you don't have considerable down payment, you're going to be paying an arm and a leg, like $600 a month for a $40,000 car, $35,000 car, I think was the numbers. And sorry for the silence. I'm reading the chat, and yeah, credit cards are dangerous because you think that you can pay them off each month, but then something kind of keeps you from paying them off. You forget about it or whatever, and you make that monthly payment, but not the full payoff amount, and then it piles on the next time. You just got to keep ahead of it and keep aware of it. This rising inflation will drive your increases in auto credit card debt. Is an article on MarketWatch written by Chris Matthews. I don't think it's that Chris Matthews. The next article, again, like I said, this episode seems to be really tied to the news that's all about inflation and the virus, and it's one of the days where I sit here and I say, this is just really rough news day. But I want to draw attention to these things because we are all part of the same society, even if you're in another country, even if you don't really care about this stuff. But there's always something here that you might be interested in, I think, and I hope that you appreciate it and you think that it's interesting. Student loans are the exorcist of debt. The exorcist? So inflation's on fire and the Fed's poised to act. Here's how markets and economy have reacted to the first hike in a cycle. Oh yeah. Yeah. Student loans there's over $1 trillion in student loans. But we will not get bailed out. Those of us who have student loans, right? I have multiple degrees, so I still have student loans. And we won't get bailed out because we aren't a bank. But there's even a lawsuit because a person had their student loans charged off in bankruptcy and it became a thing. So this article here, inflation's on fire and the Fed's poised to act. Here's how markets and the economy have reacted to the first hike in a cycle. It's written by Steve Goldstein. Apropos graphic, basically a fireplace without the fireplace. It's just flames shooting on a black background. Take care, bro. and thanks for coming. So they show for the podcast, they show some charts. Basically the S&P 500 has dropped, and that's impacting tech companies. That's impacting pretty much everybody. It's kind of interesting because when these hikes start happening, people are pulling their money out of things that might be impacted by the rate hikes. And that's kind of hit or miss. There's past performance that kind of dictates what people are going to invest in. Performance around first hike, U.S. unemployment rate. So it's dropping. The unemployment rate is dropping, but they're recategorizing. It's my opinion. It's my observation that they're recategorizing the employment rate, because if you stop looking, you're not counted as unemployed. If you look and you fail to obtain a position, you're not really unemployed. You just get put into a different category. And so, and I'll have to put it all together in a more cogent statement, but unemployment numbers are really not truly indicative of how many are unemployed. And it's really a matter of interpretation and context. So I always suspect that it's more about marketing, because you can't sit there and say that you've got 12% unemployment, because it will crush the stock market. It will crush your economy if you start telling people that you've got 12% unemployment. No, we have to stay, and it will be like fighting nonstop to keep this at below 5%. Everybody is going to stay below 5%. Even though we're 1 million plus jobs below the pandemic, right? Since the pandemic, we are below 1 million jobs from pre-pandemic numbers. We have to recover. And that's not counting 2 years that should have been upward growth, more jobs, more people. Where we are economically, we have a massive GDP, something like $4 trillion, I think it is, or no, $14 trillion. Oh, hold on. My gosh, my brain just fell out of my head. Yeah, it's $22 trillion. And we have a lot of kinetic energy. It's going to keep moving forward, but things that are happening right now in the economy, things like people are willingly not going to work. They're not counted as unemployed. We have shipping issues. We have supplier issues. We have a conflict between Russia and Ukraine that threatens to embroil us all into this conflict where most of Ukraine is sitting there going, we just want to be left alone. But Putin wants to put the band back together. So something's going to happen. And there's stories now about a very elaborate plan to take over Ukraine that came out of Russia. We'll see what happens within the next week from what I've read. So all of this kind of stuff, where inflation is the issue, things are going to get worse because conflict doesn't really make inflation go away. It just makes things more expensive. Okay. Well, I want to thank you all for coming. I really appreciate the conversation, and I hope you get a little bit of information out of this. And like always, if you go over to ohmTown, you become a citizen. Every time, and even if you're not a citizen, you don't sign up for an account, you can just click on that ohmTown logo and it will change all of the news on the front page, and every page after it will kind of shift down a little bit as the aggregator reaches out and grabs news that I think is really interesting and important. We may not all hold the same view, but we can have a conversation about this kind of stuff, and it runs a pretty broad gamut. Thanks, Jira, for coming. Really appreciate you stopping by. I plan on getting 50 shows out. Right now we're just starting with the daily news show, and I call it just ohmTown on Twitch. But this is something that is an ongoing thing. I started on the very first of the year, and I'm going to continue on every day and for the foreseeable future. And again, thank you all for coming. Really appreciate it.